The manga story begins with the moment when Cyril LaRose, the main character, was expelled from the guild. He was told that people who show sympathy for tools are not needed. Cyril chuckled, did not say anything in his defense, he just turned around and left. The kind young man, loved by dragons, continues to follow the path he believes in. He was expelled from the S-rank guild, but thanks to his ability to talk to dragons, he became a dragon knight. Dragons? Now people could not imagine life without them. About 100 years ago, people themselves learned to breed dragons, and since then they began to use them in a variety of areas. They differed in size. There were small dragons, medium, and large. The first, although small, are still 2 to 3 times larger than people, were used mainly for transportation. This also applied to war. There were many dragon riders. Medium creatures were comparable in size to a residential building. Their main purpose was to transport large moats over long distances. Large dragons were the main attack force of any army. Most often, such dragons had names. People who subjugated such creatures were called dragon knights, or in other words, knights on dragons. One day, dragon knights got together and created their own guild. Cyril saw a dragon of the Vritra species fly past him. These dragons could fly, were loyal to their master, and very hardy. They could fly huge distances. Among the medium ones, there are also those that are especially loyal to their master. This is the Nidhogg species. They are valued for their lively disposition and are used in war. A boy saw a flying dragon. He told his mother to look. There was a flying dragon up there. He was so cool. He exclaimed that when he grows up, he will definitely become a dragon knight. Cyril smiled, hearing his words, and thought that becoming a dragon knight is every boy's dream. Of course, it is so prestigious to fight on a dragon, and it is very well paid. Suddenly, Cyril heard some noise and went towards it. You could hear someone's youthful voice ordering someone to do something. Coming closer to the source of the noise, Cyril saw that a dragon was standing in the middle of the street, and the young man was indignant. Why was he standing there? Let him go to his place already and not just stand there. The dragon did not like this. He snorted loudly. Cyril recognized him as a Terax species, a small dragon, and thought that he was probably rented. Many people keep dragons for this. This type is very suitable for ground riding. There are no roughnesses on the body. That's what makes it comfortable. Cyril realized that this dragon was not just standing there. Something was bothering him. The guy did not stop being indignant. Like, what a shame. Why did he stand there? A small crowd of people had already gathered around them, and the main character squeezed through it and approached the guy. He apologized for distracting him and asked if he could intervene. The guy was surprised, but did not refuse. He greeted him and apologized for the difficulties they were having right now. The dragon was temporarily not for rent. Cyril replied that he was not a client at all, but simply came up to say that it seemed that the creature's paw hurt. That's why it was standing. The guy was surprised. What was he saying? Cyril repeated that the dragon's right hind paw hurt. The young man was amazed. He crouched down in front of the dragon and asked it to take a couple of steps. The creature made an attempt, and at that very moment, his whole body began to tremble. The guy regretfully noted that it was true. His paw was injured. He exclaimed, when did he manage to make a wound for himself? Where did he manage to do it? Sighing heavily, he continued that now he would have to suspend the rental. He asked the Cyrili if he also rented dragons. He helped him out with his advice today. Cyril replied that he was not a renter, and added that the young man should take good care of the dragon. The young man replied that he would do so. Cyril approached the dragon, and the creature thanked him. Cyril replied that there was no need for thanks. The main thing was that he got better. In a flashback, entering the dragon farm, Cyril approached one of the dragons, patted him on the neck, and said that this little one was in a bad mood today. He needed a day off. The guy laughed. What was he talking about? He had never heard of dragons being sad. Cyril irritably asked him what he even knew about this. Dragons also have feelings. The young man asked why he should show sympathy to ordinary cattle, or was he crazy? Cyril was furious. He had understood the language of dragons since childhood. No, he could not talk to animals, but dragons were a different matter, so he became a dragon knight. He studied dragons for a long time, memorized their distinctive features, and one day learned to control them. In addition, he always asked for a favor when he saddled them. People thought that he made the dragons move with just his mind, and one day he was invited to the S-rank guild of the Dragon Knights, Lindworm. Guilds receive a rank for the number of dragons and the abilities of the riders. The maximum rank is S rank. To get it, the guild must complete 3 quests of the highest difficulty in cooperation with another guild, or 2 quests with their own knights. Lindworm took the second path, but their knights forced the dragons to work against their will, which went against his views on the world. Less than a month later, he was expelled in disgrace. The interpretation of the expulsion was banal. He was accused of being useless ballast and making up reasons not to work. He was glad of this with all his heart and decided for himself that he would never join a guild again and everything would be fine. But he still needed to eat something. After leaving the guild, he was forced to work as a free dragon knight. The main place to earn money was the city hall, where freedom-loving knights like him could take on assignments. Of course, there were also ads for work that ordinary citizens could do, so orders from many agencies were collected here. But knights who left the guild as a rule do not have their own dragon, and assignments from agencies are not available to them, and anyone could take orders from the city hall. There were even some that could be completed by renting a dragon. Cyril approached the stand with ads, ran his eyes over them, and one thing interested him. Judging by the order, it was necessary to train a newborn dragon, which suited Cyril completely. Came to the address, he was met by the owner, who introduced himself as Patrick Forge. Cyril told him his name. Patrick thanked him for volunteering to help him. He explained that many people do not want to take on this task once they know the details. Cyril knew what he was talking about. After all, taming dragons is not training. Patrick believed that Cyril was right. Cyril first clarified how exactly the man wanted to raise his dragon. Patrick answered that he wanted to give it to his son for his birthday. He heard from his fellow merchants that when a child is born, you need to get a dragon. Cyril agreed with him that this was a good custom. This way, the child and the dragon become very attached to each other, and the dragon can act as a bodyguard for the child. The merchant continued that, when he bought this dragon, he hired different trainers. But for some reason, the dragon did not listen to them at all. For Cyril, this was unusual. Patrick said that was why he decided to turn to the Dragon Knights. Maybe he could do something. Cyril understood his problem and asked to show him this creature. The merchant invited him to follow him and brought him to the dragon. Cyril realized that in front of him was a Terax, a type of small dragon. The man said that this type is compact and easily gets used to people, so he chose it. Cyril approved of his choice and added that this type is also used to transport people. Patrick sadly replied that he did not listen to the trainers anyway. He asked Cyril to do something. Cyril replied that he would try and approach the dragon. He told him his name and asked what his name was. Instead, the dragon said that she wanted to see her little sister. Cyril asked her to be quiet and asked, "Little sister? What does she mean? Let her tell him more about this." Then the dragon realized what was happening. She asked Cyril in surprise, "Does he understand what she is saying?" Cyril confirmed that it was so. The dragon did not believe it. Cannot be. But if it is really so, listen to her. She and her sister were always together. But this man, the merchant, took only her. Cyril thought, "Is that so?" The dragon asked him to let her be with her sister. Then in return, she will do everything he says. Cyril clarified, would she like to live with her sister? The dragon answered that they were together since they hatched, but then they were separated. Cyril said that the man who bought her wants her to be friends with his child. Will she listen to what his son has to say? The dragon agreed to this. If only he would bring her sister, and she would do anything. Cyril replied that he understood everything and went to Patrick. The man asked him how it went. Was he able to find out anything? Cyril answered positively. He asked where Patrick bought this dragon. The man replied that he bought it from a dragon merchant. Cyril advised him to ask the merchant right away if he had another dragon like this. This was the younger sister of the dragon he had bought. She said that she would do anything if the man brought her sister. That was the problem. Patrick was amazed. A younger sister? Did this dragon just tell him that? Cyril replied that whatever the case, he should just do it. The man agreed and replied that he would do everything. After a while, he brought the second dragon, which jumped over the fence. The sisters rushed toward each other, but the older sister could not approach the younger one because she was on a leash. Cyril asked Patrick to let her go. The man looked at him in bewilderment. Cyril repeated his request more insistently. Then he said, "Well, as Celia says, and let the dragon off the leash." The creatures rushed towards each other with a joyful greeting. The older sister exclaimed how happy she was to meet, and that she was alive and well. She had no longer hoped to see her youngest. Their behavior was touching. They rubbed their muzzles against each other and cooed like doves. Patrick was shocked by what he saw. Cyril said that they were sisters. The man was amazed that they were just like people. Cyril was now at ease. Patrick realized that they should be kept together as soon as he saw their meeting, so he could understand their feelings, even without understanding their words. The man went into the house and invited Cyril to follow him. They needed to discuss the payment. Cyril nodded to him, approached the dragons. The older sister thanked him for bringing her sister. The younger asked him, was it thanks to him that they met? And she expressed her gratitude from the bottom of her heart. They assured him that they would do everything he told them. Salir replied that nothing was needed. Let them just become friends with the son of this merchant. They promised him that they would help the man's son in everything until death do them part. Cyril patted them on the head and asked them to try. Patrick met him at the threshold of the house. He expressed his surprise and thanked Cyril. He could not believe that Salir did his job so easily. After all the trainers he hired could not find a common language with the dragon. He is an incredible person. Cyril noted that the main thing is that Patrick does not separate them, both now and when they grow up. Otherwise, they will stop listening to his orders and he will start having problems again. The man replied that he remembered everything and would do everything as Cyril said. Having received his payment, Cyril went home. At last, he looked at the dragons who were sweetly cuddling with each other and smiled. He thought that he had been kicked out of the guild, but he did not regret it. Understanding the dragon language, he could understand their feelings. He would continue to help them and appreciate them. He does work to earn a living. This is, of course, important, but he had to remember his real job. So Cyril went to the city hall again. There were several people standing near the ad stand. They were discussing each ad. One of them exclaimed that this order he pointed to had a big reward. His partner asked where it was written. The guy called him a dumbass and showed him again. The partner looked and said that here, you have to take care of a dragon. This is not it. Cyril thought that such a job would not suit him either. He began to look at other ads and saw a good order on one. He tore off the paper and said, well, he will try. Arriving at the address, he heard a female voice through the window asking someone, how is the lady still writing? Whatever happened, but writing so many letters is not normal. The girl's voice said that she did not agree. It was a big problem. No matter how many letters she wrote, it would take a long time before some dragon knight took on this task. If they were late, everything would be worse than ever. The sad girl looked out the window and lamented, where is he, that knight who will save them? It was Katerina Marielle. He wondered what kind of task this mysterious girl had. After some time, Cyril briskly walked to the address that was given to him. He walked and thought. Of course, he imagined something like this. But this order was special. Expelled from the elite guild, Sealer earned extra money by completing various tasks using his gift. But this order was different from all the others. He had a meeting with the client who needed his help. He went to the address and noted that the mansion looked luxurious. He was tasked with delivering a letter, and as a reward, he was offered high-quality dragon equipment. Although it was useless for an unemployed knight without his own dragon like him, it could still come in handy. He remembered how he went to see the mysterious girl who introduced herself to him as Katerina. She noted that he was quite young. Was he sure that he could handle the task? Did he at least know how to handle dragons? Cyril smirked and replied that he seemed to know how. Katerina offered him tea and asked how well he knew his job. Cyril answered her that everything depended on the dragon. He looked at the girl and thought that when he heard her voice, for some reason he imagined her like that. Katerina had no choice but to accept his answer, especially since he was not the only one she had sent this request to. Cyril noted that it seemed to be a very important letter. The girl agreed that it was. She thought that if she wrote one letter, it might not arrive. So she wrote several letters. Cyril thought that Marielle was a noble family with many possessions. Apparently, she was much richer than Patrick, whose order he had just completed. He noted that he had one question for her. What was in this letter? The girl was surprised. What did this mean? Did he decide to interrogate her? Cyril replied that it was not like that at all, but if he knew the contents of the letter, it would be easier for him to deliver it. After all, she wanted it to reach its destination as soon as possible, and he would need to think carefully about how to best protect this confidential information. Katerina thought about it and admitted that he was right. She will tell him it is a love letter, or rather, a response to a love letter from Baron Bouquet. Cyril was surprised, so they communicate through letters. The girl complained, if only he knew how hard it is to maintain relations between two families. Besides, the Baron is very capricious. She waved her hand as if to say, okay, let him forget about it. Katerina named a place called Libo and asked him how long it would take him to deliver it. Cyril figured out that he would need to go to Libo, the city of Poveltel. The distance to there was about as long as he thought. He replied that he had calculated everything he would deliver the letter in one day. She was surprised. It was quite fast. Everyone else said that the journey would take 3 days. Cyril shrugged. She said, okay, the main thing is that he delivers it. In that case, She is counting on him. The girl handed him the letter and reminded him not to forget to bring proof that the task was completed. He would receive the reward when he returned. Cyril assured her that he understood everything and set off. He thought that first he needed to rent a dragon because he didn't have one. Of course, he didn't expect the quest to involve something like this. It seemed that this wasn't just an assignment from the Mariel family, it also involved the Bouquet family, or so he thought. He had to give it his all. Cyril came to the dragon rental office. The owner of the office greeted him and asked what kind of dragon he was looking for. Kyler asked if he had any wyverns. The faster the dragon, the better, for one person without any luggage. The renter replied that they had 3 and asked him to follow him. When they entered the dragon farm, the owner showed him where to go. Cyril replied that he would choose his own dragon, to which the owner agreed. Each knight has his own way of handling dragons, and there are those who do not want to reveal their secrets of communication to outsiders. Cyril thought that the owner of this place was already used to such guests. Suddenly, 2 dragons came to life and squealed to each other. "Here he comes, here he comes. Look, someone has come. A man has come, and he looks stupider than the previous one." Cyril answered them that it was very cruel of them. He was not stupid at all. One of the dragons said, "What can you do if he looks like that?" Then it dawned on him that the man understood them, and he asked in surprise, did he really understand them? Cyril smiled. Something like that. The dragons were amazed. How was this possible? Was he raised by dragons? Kyler answered them that it was not quite so. They were even more surprised. And who then? However, be that as it may, he is an unusual person. Does he have some business with them? Cyril would like one of them to help him complete the task. He urgently needs to deliver a letter. So, could they tell him who of them flies the fastest? The second dragon answered that she's very fast. The first dragon chattered, "Let him wait." A letter? What kind of letter? Could it be a love letter? Yes. A love letter? Cyril was amazed by her curiosity and reaction. The dragon continued to ask who was writing to whom, the guy to a girl or vice versa. Cyril answered puzzledly that a girl to a guy. The dragon became even more active. If she exclaimed that everything was decided, she would take him. She said impatiently, "Why is he hesitating? Let him be faster and she will help him deliver this letter." Cyril was amazed. Is this the only reason she is so eager to complete the task? The second dragon called the first one a pervert and asked what was good about human relationships. Then she turned to Cyril and said that the first dragon was really the fastest. Cyril couldn't believe it and asked the first dragon if she really got faster when it came to letters. The dragon replied that it was, and Cyril agreed to choose her. When he told the owner his choice, that he would like to rent the one on the right, the man was surprised. Is he sure? If he needs to get there faster, it would be better to take the dragon in the middle. Cyril refused his offer and said that the dragon he chose would do. The owner said that it was quite unusual, but let it be as he says. When Cyril brought out the dragon, it asked him to give her a letter. Cyril grumbled, okay, and gave the dragon the letter. The creature noisily inhaled the scent of the letter and delightedly said that it was the scent of a girl. Cyril doubted, is everything really going to be okay? The dragon assured him that everything would be so, continued to admire the beautiful handwriting. Cyril thought that this dragon was incredible. Wyverns are very fast dragons despite their small size. Even though he was flying to Lebo by the shortest route, she took him there in the blink of an eye simply because she was holding a letter in her teeth. Thus, they flew to Lebo in just half a day. The Baron was very happy with Katarina's letter. He praised Cyril for his excellent work and asked to leave him alone. Cyril noticed that they were both kind of strange. After some time, the Baron wrote a reply, and Kyler gave the reply letter to the dragon. She took it back in the same half a day. He successfully returned to Mrs. Katarina and reported that his journey took half the time. The girl replied that he was simply unique, and indeed, he delivered the letter in one day and returned so quickly. She remarked that he was very good. Cyril was embarrassed by her praise and thanked her for the kind words. Katarina asked what his name was. Cyril introduced himself to her. The girl replied that she would remember his name. If she had another task, she would definitely call him. Cyril thought with joy that he had successfully completed another task. After that, he came to the dragon market. He wanted to look at the creatures for sale, although the price for them was still high, but it was also too expensive to rent them. If he could buy his own dragon and build a trusting relationship with it, then the two of them could handle any job. He slowly walked along the pens with dragons and looked closely. Suddenly, he stopped in front of one creature. He thought, is this Baylor's price too cheap? It turns out that this dragon was sold for next to nothing. I wonder what the reason for the low price was. He went to the merchant, who greeted him. Cyril asked him what was wrong with the Baylor that had a low price. His price was no higher than the rental price of any other dragon, and the for sale ad looked very shabby. The merchant hesitated with an answer. Syleer asked him if she was sick with something. The man answered that the dragon had no physical defects. She was very good compared to other Baylors. Cyril was puzzled. Then what was the matter? The merchant said that, without going into details, she was very lazy. Cyril was surprised. Is that really true? The man continued that the dragon often did not do what she was told, so he would not advise him to take her. Cyril asked him for permission to take a closer look at her. Of course, the merchant allowed him to do so. He led him to the dragon and told him that he could take his time. Baylors are often used for transporting goods. Although they are not very fast, they are very hardy due to their strong muscles. In addition, they are herbivorous dragons, so any of this species will be happy with grassy meadows. This greatly simplified their care. Cyril approached the dragon closer and greeted her. He apologized for disturbing her, but he was talking to the seller about her. He asked why she did not want to work so much. The dragon was silent in response. Cyril asked her again. She will not talk to him? She opened her eyes and said what difference did it make to him? He would not understand anyway. Cyril noted that she was very calm for a dragon and offered her to start over without misunderstandings. Suddenly, she shuddered and asked in a surprised voice, "Can he talk?" Cyril grinned. Did she notice this only now? The dragon asked how this was possible. He answered that it was not so important. The most important thing is that sometimes this power helps him out. So what is the matter with her? She yawned and answered that she wanted to sleep. Cyril asked again, "Sleep?" The dragon confirmed that it was so. She wanted to sleep 12 hours a day. Otherwise, she would not be able to work. He noted that this was unusual. Usually, dragons are so strong that only 2 hours of sleep are enough for them to fully rest. In addition, there are those that can continue to move when they sleep. He thought that every dragon was unique in its own way. Sealer offered her that he would allow her to sleep 12 hours a day, and she would help him. The dragon did not believe him, said that he was lying. Cyril objected. He did not lie to her. If he did not agree to this, he would simply take another dragon. She understood the reasonableness of his argument and clarified. Is he really going to allow her to sleep so much? Cyril replied that it was. But in exchange, she would work hard. The dragon agreed to his offer and said that she would believe him. When Cyril told the seller that he was taking this dragon, the man was surprised. Is he sure? They do not issue refunds. Cyril assured him that he was absolutely sure of his decision. The Dragon Knights have their own methods of work. Thus, Cyril acquired a faithful assistant, or rather, a friend. He asked her if he could give her a name. It would be much easier for them to communicate with each other. She was not against it, but don't people usually call dragons by numbers? The main character reasonably decided that he could talk to her, so there was no point in the numbers. She understood his position. Sealer asked her if she liked the name Louise. She chanted it. He asked if she didn't like such a name. The dragon answered that it was not the matter. It just felt unusual. Now she had a name, and she liked it, I guess. Cyril looked at her doubtfully and said that it would be good. They approached his house. He told her that they were there. This was his house. Louise asked him where she could sleep. He replied that there was a garden behind the house. She could sleep wherever she wanted, but she had to forgive him. If he had known that he would be living with a dragon, he would have rented a house with a bigger garden, but he still hoped that this garden would suit her. Louise reassured him. She didn't care as long as she could sleep. He chuckled and noted that she really was a sleepyhead. Cyril asked if she was going to go to bed now. It was already getting dark, and besides, there was no work for today. She asked him doubtfully if he was serious. Cyril replied that he was serious. He was completely confident in his decision, so she shouldn't worry. Louise said that he was a strange person. He chuckled. People often say things like that to him. She addressed him as the owner, rearranging some of the letters in this word. He laughed and corrected her. The dragon conspiratorially said that she would show only him something. He wondered what she would show him. She replied that it was her secret and used the skill Light Spear. Her roar caused blinding spears of light to fly. Cyril was amazed. Where did she get such power from? The dragon replied that she didn't know. She could do it since birth. He was even more surprised. Since birth, he had probably seen only about 100 Baylor, but not a single one of them who could do something like this. Obviously, Baylor don't have such an ability. She said that if she uses this power, she gets very tired. Cyril replied that it was understandable. He didn't know where she got this power from, but it seemed to use up a lot of her energy. The dragon assumed that was probably true, but she wouldn't mind using it if her master wanted. She rearranged the letters in the word again, and he laughed and thanked her, but she shouldn't have strained herself like that. The next morning, he greeted the dragon and said that he was going to look for a job. What did she want to do in the meantime? Louise answered briefly. She would sleep. He said that he understood. Maybe they would take on some work after dinner, and until then, she could sleep as much as she wanted. He went to the city hall and thought that at first, he didn't know whether to believe her or not, but now he knew that it was true. Walking to the notice board, he thought that now that he had Louise, he could look for some delivery jobs. At that moment, someone called out to him. He turned around and was surprised to see a girl named Rose. She was the secretary of the guild he was expelled from. She said that she had been waiting for him to come. Cyril was surprised. Was that really true? The girl continued that they had a task especially for him. Would he mind listening to her? They settled down to talk more comfortably, and Cyril asked her why him. Rose replied that Lady Katerina had praised him. Something like that. He was very good. She added that not many free knights could be honored with such an honor. Cyril chuckled. Really? He was just trying very hard. Rose continued that that was why she decided that she could entrust this matter to him. Cyril asked what kind of task it was. The girl replied, searching for a person. Cyril was surprised. Do dragon knights do such things? The girl answered, of course, but this is not a normal job. He must keep everything in the strictest secrecy. The thing is, the princess herself has disappeared. Cyril was surprised. The princess? It seems that it is time for him to do some serious work. Rose apologized to him, but she could not reveal the details of this matter. He guessed it himself and asked, in other words, is this their future queen? And what about the task itself? The girl asked him, does he know Mount Himuya, the one located north of the city? Cyril confirmed that he knows this place and asked, is this where the task will be carried out? Rose continued that the convoy transporting the princess disappeared in the area of this mountain. At least, that's what they thought. Cyril was surprised. The convoy disappeared? He thinks not much time has passed since then. The girl confirmed that it was so. It happened last night. They do not know the details, and they are not particularly important. They need him to inspect the surroundings. That's all the task. What will he say to this? Does he agree? Cyril thought for a moment, and then answered that he agreed. He would take on this job. Returning home, he saddled Louise, and they set off. The dragon asked him, what was wrong? Why did he have such a complicated face? Cyril answered that the princess had disappeared without a trace. It was possible that she might already be dead. Of course, he was glad that he had been entrusted with such a task. If he could help with something, he would definitely help. But it was also a big responsibility. Louise rightly noted that it was useless to think about it now. She saw a mountain ahead of her and asked, are they heading to that mountain, right? Cyril answered that she was right, and added that he had taken a letter written by the princess. Cyril took it out and asked the dragon, would she be able to find her by smell? She replied that she was not very good at this, but she would try. The dragon sniffed it carefully. Cyril asked her, well, how is it? She answered that she felt it. He was surprised, right? She found her? Louise answered that the princess often used perfume. He chuckled like perfume then. The dragon continued that the smell of perfume is very strong, so it is easy to catch. Cyril heard that dragons have a good sense of smell, but this was the first time he used it in action. He told her to lead him. The dragon answered as her master wished. Having climbed to the very top of the mountain, Cyril noted that he would never have climbed it alone. What a climb! He praised the dragon that she is real gold. Louise was embarrassed. She was pleased to hear such words. She embarrassedly said that there was nothing special in it. She would always help him. She asked, like, by the way, this is work, right? Cyril, not understanding where she was going with this, answered positively. The dragon said that she wanted a reward. If she was very useful, he would have to reward her. He asked her again in surprise. Reward? She replied that he understood everything correctly. Cyril asked, what does she want? The dragon replied that she wants a lot of straw. If you spread it out properly, it will be very soft and warm for her to sleep on. Cyril was surprised. Is she sure? He will buy it, of course, but does she really need it? She happily jumped up and down, and he almost fell off her back. Louise exclaimed that she would give it her all then, and rushed forward. Cyril held on tightly to her, and remembered how the guild leader once told him not to show sympathy to common cattle. The people in that guild were too cruel. Suddenly, Louise braked so hard that Cyril almost fell off her back. He exclaimed, what happened? Why did she stop so abruptly? Louise calmly said that the princess was here, below. They were standing on the edge of the cliff. Cyril thought in fear. Did the princess fall from here? He looked closer and saw that at the very bottom of the pit lay the broken carriage of the princess. He assumed that maybe the girl was inside the carriage. Louise asked him if she should go down. Cellier asked if she could do it. The dragon answered that it was no problem and began to go down. When they were at the very bottom, he saw how the princess's guards were lying near the carriage and apparently were dead. He thought that everything here looked terrible, but where was the princess? Cyril approached the carriage, looked around, and saw on the surface the same coat of arms that was on the letter. Without a doubt, it was her carriage. He looked at the guards. Unfortunately, they were no longer able to be helped. He hoped that at least the princess was okay. Coming closer to the carriage, he realized that he could not get into it. Something invisible was preventing him from doing so. Cyril was surprised. What was it? The omnipresent Louise told him that it was a barrier. Selir was upset. What should he do now? The dragon calmly asked him, should she remove this barrier? He joyfully exclaimed that yes, she could do it. He asked her to remove the barrier immediately. She used her magical roar, and the barrier of the carriage cracked. Cyril thanked her from the bottom of his heart. How she helped him out. Louise laughed contentedly. Cyril pulled back the curtain of the carriage and saw the princess. She was lying with her eyes closed. He apprehensively approached her closer to check if she was breathing. The girl was breathing, and he did not visually detect any serious wounds. She was fine. Louise replied that the barrier protected her. Cyril touched the girl on the shoulder and addressed her by status. She opened her eyes, asked where she was. Then, realizing that there was a stranger next to her, she screamed. Who was he? How dare he climb into her cart? Cyril answered that she should calm down. He was not a robber. He was simply ordered to find her. She asked again, find? He briefly told her about what happened. She looked out of the cart. Sylar noticed that she reacted calmly to all this, which was quite unexpected. The girl asked if anyone else survived besides her. He answered her. Apparently no. She took this news calmly. Cyril offered her to get out of the cart. He would examine whether she was wounded or not. She suddenly exclaimed, but what about the soldiers? Cyril understood how she felt, but they needed to quickly deliver her to a safe place. The soldiers could be taken care of later. She agreed to his proposal and got out of the carriage. When the girl saw Louise, she said in surprise, "A dragon?" Kyler turned to Louise and asked if she could carry 2 people. She looked at him slyly and said the word straw. He laughed and promised to buy her at least a whole field. She noted that this was an excellent promise and invited them to ride on her back. Cyril understood the princess's fear, so he explained to her that the Baylor are a very calm species. She has nothing to be afraid of, but he will ask just in case. Is she okay? The girl was too melancholic. This alarmed Cyril. Cyril again asked what was bothering her. At this moment, she seemed to wake up and suddenly gasped. Cyril worriedly asked the princess what was wrong. She cleared her throat and asked him, so he's a dragon knight? Cyril answered that he was. She was interested in what guild he belonged to. He replied that he had none. The princess was surprised. How could that be? And how could such a talented person like him cope alone? He was surprised because she had just met him. How could she know what kind of person he was? The princess replied that the dragon's eyes showed how much she trusted him with all her heart, and that said a lot. Cyril was surprised. Is that true? Louise tactfully kept silent. The princess continued saying that she had heard that knights who were able to gain the trust of their dragons were the best. It was surprising that he was not a member of the guild. He looked at her, smirked, and said that there were reasons for that. When Cyril brought the princess to the place, Rose was amazed. Had he found her already? She asked the girl, "Is she a princess? Let them wait here for a while. She will call the authorities now." The princess hesitantly turned to Cyril. He looked at her questioningly. The girl continued that she would like to thank him. Is there any way she can repay him? Cyril replied that he would receive his reward from the customer, so she did not have to worry about it. The princess took out something and said that he did not mind. She would like him to take a handkerchief with her family crest. If he needed her help, he could see her by showing the handkerchief to the guards. She would try to help him in any way she could. Cyril bowed to her and replied that he was very grateful to her. He summed up in his mind that the saving the princess operation had also gone off without a hitch. Rosa came out with the guild leader and handed Cyril the reward. They said goodbye to the princess and immediately went to get the reward. Cyril had a plan, when he received the reward, to thank the dragon because he had promised her. He shook the bag and said that there was 1,000 lyre in it. What a reward! Louise called out to him and offered him to buy hay. He thought about it. She reminded him he had promised. He said that he was talking about straw, although let her not worry about it. Now they will go and buy everything. He was just thinking. After all, a person can live for a month on 1,000 lyre and not worry about anything. MC conspiratorially told the dragon that they could buy something better than hay and straw. That's what he was getting at. The dragon was surprised. Better than hay and straw? He was lying. There couldn't be anything better. But what was that? Cyril replied that he meant a soft feather bed, or something else, but it would be better if she saw it with her own eyes. Cyril asked her, "Are they going?" She said, "He's even asking. Of course they'll go." Louise noted that this store had everything to take care of them, dragons. Cyril agreed that there were even toys, but she didn't seem to be interested in them. He suggested that she come in here. Louise agreed with him. They were about to go into the store when someone said something like, "Hey, wow, that's liar." Cyril looked back at the voice and saw Louis, a knight from his old guild, Lindworm. Louise asked him if he was surprised. Cyril didn't have time to answer him. The knight noted that he was not surprised like him. He returned from a mission, and it turns out he was kicked out. Cyril objected. He left himself. Louise said, "What a pity. Maybe he should put in a good word for him. He would whisper to the right people, and maybe they would take him back." Cyril couldn't believe his ears. Since when did he start helping others? That was definitely an unprecedented rarity. Moreover, he was not at all eager to return. Louis replied, like, that's what he was talking about. Well, for starters, he would have to take back his words. Solaire asked, "What other words?" The guy reminded him about the ones he said. Did he forget or something? About the feelings of dragons or something like that? If he goes back on his word, he can easily return him to the guild. After all, they'd be sorry to lose such a capable knight? Cyril chuckled. What's there to think about? He'll never give up his beliefs, Louis remarked, so he shouldn't get so worked up. Is he even in his right mind? What can he do alone? Cyril replied that he could do anything if he tried. Louis sighed and replied that he was wasting his time with him. At that moment, Louise asked her master what they could talk about for so long. And where was her feather bed? Cyril apologized to her and added that his interlocutor didn't want her to sleep 12 hours a day. That's how it was. Louise got mad. What did he say? Flaring her nostrils, she menacingly said to Louis, "What did he say?" The guy got scared and asked Solaire what's wrong with his dragon. What is he doing? Let him calm his animal down. Cyril objected. He did nothing. Or maybe it seemed to him that he ordered his dragon to attack him. Louis admitted that he did not order anything, cursed, and added that Solaire was always like this. And what kind of magic does he use anyway? Cyril replied that it was so obvious. He just appreciates dragons. Louis smirked doubtfully and left them alone. He walked and was indignant, saying, "Again, Cyril with his nonsense." Louise asked, "What's wrong with this guy?" Solaire replied that they simply could not agree with each other. Never mind. Whatever he said, as long as they were together, she could sleep for 12 hours. He guaranteed her that. They finally entered the store. The seller greeted them and noted that he came with a belower. Was he looking for something specific? Cyril replied that he was looking for a feather bed for his girl. The seller said as he wished and asked permission to show them the way. When he showed them the assortment of goods they were interested in, Louise was amazed. Does such a thing really exist? And she kept exclaiming, "Wow, wow." She dove into one of the feather beds and began to tumble around in it. Cyril called out to her. She shouldn't have behaved like that. The dragon settled down on the feather bed more comfortably and said that she was going to fall asleep now. Cyril apologized to the seller. He didn't know what came over her. The merchant smiled and told him not to worry. They could try any of the goods on display. Solaire thanked him. He was now calm. He noted that Louise had taken a liking to the pillow. Cyril asked, "Is this a slime pillow?" The seller replied that he was right. People also use it as a bed. This pillow has the elasticity of a slime and is considered the most suitable for a comfortable sleep. Louise admired it. She liked it very much. It was much nicer than any hay. Cyril asked the merchant how much this pleasure cost. He answered that this pillow cost 1,200 lira. Cyril thought that it was quite expensive. He asked Louise if she really liked it. The dragon answered that she only wanted it, but then she became serious and asked if it was too expensive. Was he sure? Cyril smiled and said that the main thing was that she liked it. The dragon was happy and emotionally thanked him. Solaire told the merchant that he was taking this pillow. The man thanked him and added that it was very unusual. Cyril asked what exactly was unusual. The merchant had heard that among the dragon knights, there were those who could talk to dragons, and he had the impression that he was one of them. Cyril admitted that this dragon was like a family member to him. He paid for the pillow, and they left the store. The seller invited them to visit his store again. Cyril watched Louise and was happy. He never thought that she would like this pillow so much. He apologized for making her carry the purchase. Wasn't it hard for her? Louise looked at him and asked him to answer. Was he really happy? Celia was surprised. Why did she do this all of a sudden? She noted that it was too late to talk about it, but 1,200 lira was much more than he received for saving the princess. She thought that she was acting too selfishly. Cyril did not let her finish. He told her not to worry. He promised her. She remembered he was able to earn it only thanks to her. She helped him out a lot, so she deserved a reward. The dragon smiled and thanked her master. A few days later, Cyril told the dragon that they had done a great job today. She remained silent. Cyril became worried. Why was she silent? What had happened? She replied that she wanted to sleep. He realized that she was very tired after work, but there was nothing he could do. He still had to collect the reward. He thought for a while and exclaimed that an idea had occurred to him. He had promised that she would be able to sleep as long as she wanted. Would she be able to walk home alone? The dragon replied that she could. Then he sent her home and added that he would catch up with her. The dragon asked, was he serious? Cyril replied positively. She had done a good job today. Louise agreed with him and trudged home. Cyril watched her go and thought that their town was quiet, so Louise should not have gotten into trouble. However, if you think about it, the only one who could send the dragon home alone is him, the one who understands the dragon language. He hoped that nothing bad would happen. Louise walked and openly yawned. He thought that with him, the dragons could even work alone. Maybe it was worth buying another dragon. At that moment, the creaking of wheels was heard, and Cyril saw a carriage passing by in which a girl was sitting and eating dessert. And opposite her was a dragon in a cage. He was hungry and looked at the street. What was the dragon looking at through the bars of the cage? Cyril came to the dragon shop again. The seller greeted him, then asked if he had recently bought a baler from him. Celia replied that he had. Not long ago, he had bought a gift for Louise to thank her for the work she had done, and now an idea had occurred to him, which is why he went to the dragon shop. He thanked the seller for Louise. The man became embarrassed and said that he should thank him for the purchase. He asked how the dragon was doing. Cyril replied that she was doing well. He should relax. He would not return her. They get along well and often work together. He continued that he came to him for another reason. He would like to buy another dragon. The merchant was happy and thanked Cyril for choosing his shop. Cyril confessed to him that he had recently made a very expensive purchase, so he is now broke. The seller expressed his regret to him. Celia asked him if he had any more dragons in the same price range. The seller did not have such dragons. Cyril was upset. He rushed into the store without thinking. What did he expect? He turned to the seller, said that he was in no hurry, and if he had a similar dragon, let him contact him. Cyril took out a piece of paper to write his address, and something fell out of his bag. The seller apologized and noticed that something had fallen. Cyril bent down to pick up the princess's fallen scarf. The seller, noticing the fallen item, was surprised to see the royal coat of arms on the letter. He asked Cyril in amazement, was this the coat of arms of the royal family? Cyril replied that it was. He recently took a task and saved the princess. As a reward, he was given this scarf. The merchant seemed to have been replaced. He addressed Celir as a dear customer and said that he could give him a discount. The astonished protagonist asked if he was sure of his decision. The man exclaimed, "Everything for the sake of customers." Celir understood everything. The seller wanted to have connections with a person who knew the princess, so he was doing him such a favor. He said that he would be happy to accept his offer. They went to the dragons. The seller asked him if he had any specific requests. Cyril said that he was interested in Sirush. These are small dragons with 4 stomachs, 3 of which are not used for their intended purpose, and are a kind of warehouses. The more things Sirushes absorb, the more they swell, resembling a balloon. When they entered the enclosure with the dragons, Cyril crouched down in front of one, greeted her, and introduced himself. Colette said, "Wow, a human is talking to her. Is he stupid?" and turned away from him. Cyril asked, "Doesn't she want to talk to people?" The dragon answered that it was so. Then Cyril asked her why she did not want to communicate. Sirush noted that even if she answered, he still would not understand her. At that moment, it dawned on her what was happening. She asked Cyril in amazement, did he really understand her? But why? How could this be? Cyril replied that he had been like this since birth. He was thinking about buying her. What did she think about it? The dragon reasonably noted that he would have bought her, and that was it. Cyril was surprised. Was she sure? Colette irritably said, "What difference does it make? All people are terrible, worse than animals." Cyril answered. He spoke to her to find out her opinion. If she did not want to, then he would not buy her. The dragon could not believe what she heard. Cyril continued. If she still agreed, then they would leave here together. Colette asked why he wanted to buy her. Cyril noted that, of course, she would work with him. But what was more important was that she was very sweetful. Colette was indignant. What was the man talking about? Then she thought about it and said that she had one condition. He would not give her a new name. She had received her name before she hatched and introduced herself to him. Cyril replied that she had a very beautiful name, and he did not mind her condition. He extended his hand to her and asked if she was going with him. The dragon hesitated, then noted that there was nothing to be done. So be it. She would go with him. Only let him not make up things for himself, and let him not think that she liked him. He could call her Colette. Cyril agreed to this. He liked her name. He only added that he was counting on her. Cyril signed a check for payment and headed home with his purchase. He noticed that it was still light outside and asked Colette if she would mind stopping by somewhere on the way home. It was a place where they would go with her for work. She asked again, for work? He took her to a quarry where there was a lot of ore and told her that he wanted her to collect this ore. Colette looked at it and noted that the ore was very beautiful. Cyril explained to her that this was Mount Milrif, where there were natural deposits of cabanium. It is used in many places, so it can be easily sold in the city. He wanted her to fill her stomachs with it and bring it to the city. Colette understood everything and began to absorb the ore. He asked her if she was okay. She answered that she could handle it. Cyril thanked her and noted that he really appreciated it. The dragon said that it was a very simple job. Cyril explained that of all the dragons, only she could do it. But would she do it without his supervision? Colette replied that she had no problem. Then she asked in amazement, how is that possible without supervision? Salir continued that the task was not as simple as she thought. He wanted her to collect ore here and take it to the trading post in the city. He hoped that she could do it on her own, of course. To the best of her ability, the dragon was surprised she herself and he would not keep an eye on her. Cyril smiled and replied that he would not watch her. She was even more surprised, and if she shied away from work, hadn't he thought about that? Cyril laughed and replied that he trusted her. She asked, was he a fool? He just knew that she could be trusted. That's why. Colette was very touched by his trust and said that she would do it for him. The shop was very surprised when they heard his proposal, but still agreed to cooperate. Meanwhile, Colette started working and carried the ore without his supervision. She did everything as he asked her. Cyril praised her and brought her home. He asked her if she would mind sleeping in the garden. It was certainly not luxurious, but still it was better than nothing. Colette answered that it was still better here than in the basement of the shop. She noticed the sleeping Louise and asked if he had another dragon. Cyril said that she had noticed correctly and said that the dragon's name was Louise. Meanwhile, Louise woke up, saw Colette, and asked who it was. Cyril apologized to her for waking her up. She replied that she felt the presence of another creature, perhaps her. She pointed at Colette. He noted that everything was correct. Let her forgive him that everything happened so suddenly, but he bought another dragon. Colette asked her if her name was Louise, and she told her her name. Louise understood her and added that she had also been bought recently and expressed hope that they would become friends. They looked around. Louise noted that they would be living here together. Colette answered that that was indeed the case. They told Cyril that it was a bit cramped for two. He understood this himself. The dragons continued that they did not mind staying here for a while, especially as long as they could sleep here. Colette asked Louise if she liked to sleep. In that case, she would re-educate her. They laughed. Cyril, watching them, thought that they, of course, said that they did not mind, but still it was really cramped here. He should think about moving. The next day, the three of them went about their business. Louise yawned openly. Colette grinned. She was such a sleepyhead. She answered that she wanted to sleep. Cyril noted that there was nothing wrong with that. Colette asked him if he had taken her, even knowing about her peculiarity. He replied that it was true. He had promised her that he would let her sleep 12 hours a day. If he had not been able to talk to dragons, he would not have known that she liked to sleep. The same was true for her, Colette. That was why he had not given her a new name. Colette said that they had been brought together by fate itself. Then she snorted that he had bought her because she was cheap. Cyril did not deny it. Suddenly, Colette stopped and looked at the bakery. Cyril asked her what was going on. She shook her head and told him not to pay attention. But she was looking at something. The dragon snapped that she had not looked at anything. Let him leave her alone. Then she sternly asked why they were all standing. She went to work. Having said goodbye to them, she left. Louise answered her back saying, they will see each other. Cyril also wished her a safe journey. He wondered what she was looking at. Then he saw a bakery shop with all sorts of desserts and wondered if Colette was looking at them. After work, he praised Louise and said that he had one little thing to do. Would she wait for him a little? He went into the dragon shop again. The seller greeted him. Cyril also greeted him and asked him if his dragon had already visited him. The merchant took out a bag of money and said that she had left it. The main character smiled and noted that she did bring it after all. The thing is, he asked Colette to bring her first earnings here. He apologized to the seller. It was not that much, but he would like to pay for the installment plan. Colette would bring him money from time to time. The seller replied that he understood him. However, he was amazed. How could he entrust his dragon with such a difficult task? Besides, the dragon does all this without his supervision. Probably he has an amazing talent. Cyril was embarrassed, saying that he was flattering him. The seller added that he was not only a good dragon knight, but also a wonderful person. To Cyril's surprise, he replied that he could not even think that he would pay so soon. Many people delay the payment for a long time, which causes a lot of trouble. Cyril answered him that this was the least he could do for his kindness. He hoped for a long-term cooperation with him. He takes very good care of the dragons, which he really likes. The seller said that dragons are his valuable goods, so he keeps an eye on them. He came to his senses and asked Cyril. He bought a second dragon. Is there enough space for them? Cyril replied that they fit, more or less, but he is a very perceptive person. The man said that there were a couple of places to rent out for keeping dragons in their city. There was a stable for 2 dragons, and there was a stable for several creatures. As he said, only 2 places. Cyril noted that he was a very knowledgeable person. The merchant continued that he would vouch for him. He could not worry, but there was one detail. Cylir asked what the detail was. The man knew that he would be interested in his offer. It was a new building, but for some reason, the dragons did not like it. The stable was very wide. So many dragon knights would like to move there with their dragons. However, for some reason, the dragons refused to enter inside. When Cyril came to the place with his dragons, they were amazed by the size of the buildings. Colette asked, "Will they live here?" Louise noted that this house looked decent. Cyril said that people did not often rent it for a long time, let alone buy it, so it was rented out at a very cheap price. He would like to hear their opinion and find out what the problem with this barn was. He walked a little further and said that this house was for him and this barn was for them. Louise noticed the huge size of the barn. He invited them to go inside. When they did, Cyril looked around and said that there was nothing unusual here. But what did they think? Cylir saw how his dragons tensed up. He called out to them and asked what they felt. They answered that they did not like this place, explaining this by the fact that there was a terrible smell in this place. Cyril was surprised. The smell? Only dragons can smell it? He wondered where it was coming from. Louise thought that it all came from the floor. Cyril was even more surprised. From the floor? From the ground? The dragons could not stay in this barn any longer and left it. Cylir was perplexed. What was that smell? Louise answered that she had a feeling that dragons were being killed in this place. Colette added that this place probably absorbed this smell. Cyril was puzzled. It seems that something terrible happened here. That's why the dragons don't like this place. Maybe it was worth changing the soil here then? He asked Colette if she could bring other soil here. For example, from the fields? She answered that she could easily carry it in her stomach. Cyril turned to Louise and suggested that she take a rest. The soil here needed to be dug up, and he was going to do it. After some time, the allies did what they had planned. They changed all the soil in the barn. Cyril, tiredly wiping his forehead, said that it took him the whole day. He asked the dragons how they felt in this barn now. Louise joyfully exclaimed that it was good here now. She really liked it. Colette picked up her delight and noted that her work was not in vain. Cyril was pleased with their reactions, didn't like the dirt, but now everything is fine. He stood up and announced that since they liked it here now, they were moving here. The dragons were very happy that this was a very wide barn, just like a palace. Louise was especially delighted because she could sleep here to her heart's content, which she was incredibly happy about. Cyril smiled and told his girls that it was all thanks to them, but he especially noted Colette. She tried very hard. She was pleased with the praise of the owner. Cyril said that he had a gift for her and invited her to see what it was. He pulled back the curtain from the pastry case, and the dragon's gaze opened to an amazing picture for her in the form of various buns and a large cake. Louise asked in surprise, "Human sweets?" Cylir asked Colette she was looking at them then. He thought that she loved them very much, so he ordered a large cake just right for her. Colette asked in amazement, "Is this all for her?" Louise asked her seriously, "Does she like all this?" and called her friend a weirdo. Colette was embarrassed, pretended to be irritated, and was indignant that, in fact, she didn't really like all this. She didn't like any sweets at all, but her ears resonated with the anticipated pleasure. She said that their life was not a bed of roses. Why should all this food go to waste? So be it. She would eat it all. A minute later, there was no trace left of all the culinary delights. Sometime later, after another order, Cyril came to collect the payment. Rose admired his quality and speed. He replied that there was nothing unusual about it. The girl thanked him for the excellent work he had done. He had helped them out. As if, by the way, she asked him if he had bought a second dragon. Cyril did not deny it, and the girl explained her curiosity to him. Free knights can't often afford even one dragon, but he bought two, and he is a very hard-working knight. Cyril thanked her for her kind words. She asked if he was okay with it. Noticing Cyril's puzzled look, she explained that he hadn't thought about joining a guild. He noted that when he became a vagabond, he tried different things, but after being expelled from the Lindworm Guild, he understood a lot about this world. Most guilds know. Almost all dragon knights think the same way. For them, dragons are just tools, but he treats them completely differently. A mediocre attitude towards these creatures is alien to him. The girl apologized to him. She knew that he was not eager to join a guild, but maybe he would be interested in something else. Cyril asked what she meant. She lowered her voice and spoke conspiratorially. Let him just imagine. He confounded himself, found his own guild. She explained that a guild is an organization recognized by the country. In this case, it is the Guild of Dragon Knights. Dragons and dragon knights are special, and the attitude towards them is also special. She asked him if it is possible to start creating his guild. He thought about her words, and she continued that from a particularly large one: taxes. He asked her, something like income tax? She answered that this too. The tax on the livestock of dragons is also reduced. When a person has several dragons, the difference is very noticeable. Cyril noted that he did not know about the tax on livestock. Rose continued that depending on the strength of the guild, the abilities of dragons can also increase slightly. This surprised Cyril very much. He exclaimed in disbelief, "Is this true?" The girl answered that it was so. At the highest level of the guild, the dragons become 10% stronger. It is not much, of course, but still better than nothing. Cyril said that even 10% is already great. He asked her how it works. The girl shrugged. She did not really understand it either. It is somehow connected with the agreement between the King of the Gods, Romancia, and the King of the Dragons, MN. At least, that's what they say, but she herself probably did not know. Cyril noted that it turns out that guilds have their advantages, and what is needed to find your own. The girl answered that first, you need an official observer. If anything, she can become his observer, so there will be no problems with this. The main character thanked her for this. She continued that a deposit will also be needed. This is not so simple. It is necessary to prepare 10,000 lire. Cyril said in surprise that this is a rather large amount. Having said this, he opened his bag and poured out the coins, his earnings, in front of her. She could not believe it. He explained to her that just yesterday Colette had found a rare ore. She came from the mine, showed him the stone, and said that there was this strange stone among the ore. It really looked very strange. Now it was like this, and in the morning when she found it, it was a completely different color. He was interested. A stone that changed colors? Cyril decided to take it to the appraiser the next day. The appraiser said that it was a 4-color polylite. Cyril asked him if this stone was rare. The appraiser said that it was indeed so, and asked how about 10,000 lire for it. Cyril sold this thing. That's where the money comes from. Rose counted the money. The amount was correct. She said that it was incredible. He was very lucky. He grinned and noted that he did not expect to spend it all so quickly. Rose asked him if she was applying for a guild. Cyril agreed to this. She handed him the application form for him to fill out. He wrote down what was required, the name of the representative, the address, the number of dragons, and their types. Rose noted that it was necessary. The name of the guild was needed. This was perhaps the most important. Without thinking for long, he wrote down the name, which surprised the girl very much. Dragon First. He explained because the name should reflect the essence of the guild. Rose replied, "So be it." She was accepting the application. At that moment, a golden glow appeared on the paper. From it, a small creature with wings like a butterfly appeared. Cyril was very surprised. "Girl!" Rose explained that this is the guild fairy. At least that's what they call them. She is something like an ID. Cyril was amazed by this fact. He looked at the fairy. She was silent and blinked often, looking at him. He asked what he should do with her. Rose answered that she would follow him herself, so he did not need to do anything. The fairy fluttered up and sat on his bag. The girl told him to treat it with care. She put some box on the table, opened it, and showed it to Cyril. He was amazed. Were they collars and bracelets? She confirmed that they were, and added that these were devices for measuring the strength of dragons. The guild rank would increase depending on the readings. He remembered that in Lindworm, dragons wore all this. He expressed doubt. The girl asked him, what was the matter? Cyril answered that he did not want to put all these collars on his dragons at all. Rose thought about it, then answered that he could go to the dragon workshop. There were many things there besides collars. After some time, Cyril asked his girls what kind of jewelry they would like. Dragons were surprised. Jewelry? He explained that he had been to the dragon's workshop and had seen everything there. Earrings, bows, and everything the heart desires. He asked them, what would they like to wear from this? The dragons thought about his question, what would they like to wear? Louise thoughtfully said that she would like a sleeping bag. Cyril was surprised. What was she talking about? A sleeping bag. He didn't think there were sleeping bags for dragons, and it could hardly be called an accessory. Louise thought about it and exclaimed that then she would like an eye mask. Cyril thought about it. He assumed that they would sew it to order for him, but was she sure that she just wanted a mask? Louise answered that he understood everything correctly. He said in response, then she would have to wear it all the time. She was glad that would be good. Would it bother her? Cyril had to agree to her wish. Then he asked Colette, what did she want? Maybe something special. Colette thought about it, hummed, and said that she would like a ribbon, or something similar to a ribbon. He agreed to her wish, asking her what kind of ribbon she would like. She smiled and said that she would like a cute ribbon. Cyril thought with warmth that she was such a girly girl. But if he told her that, she would start to get embarrassed again. So he answered that he understood everything and would go to the workshop tomorrow to discuss the order. When the shop owner took Louise's measurements, she clarified that she would make everything to size. She also named the sum of 100 lire and asked if Cyril would be satisfied with that amount. He was satisfied, but he asked her to make 2, so that 1 would be in reserve. The shopkeeper understood everything and said that she would give the appropriate orders. In a few days, everything would be ready. Cyril thanked her. When they left the workshop, he asked the dragon if everything was okay. Louise happily answered that everything was okay. She was very happy. He looked at her collar and thought that they were both wearing collars temporarily, and both of them put them on without resistance. But he didn't like it at all. She turned to him and said that she didn't really think he would agree to an eye mask. Sealer was surprised. She wanted it, so there was no reason to refuse. Louise thanked her master with a satisfied look. At that moment, something lit up in his bag. When he looked to see what was going on, he saw that the guild card was lit up. He looked closely and realized that his guild level had risen to the 2nd. He was amazed what had happened. Everything was so sudden and incomprehensible. Cyril came to Rose, explained the situation to her, and asked if the guild level was really rising that fast. The girl looked puzzled. She replied that he had registered a guild of 1 person and 2 dragons. Usually in such cases, it takes about a month to rise to the 2nd level. He realized that he was the only one in the guild, which meant that if there were more people, the level would grow faster. He doubted that there must have been some mistake. Rose asked him to wait a bit and left. When she returned, she was surprised to notice that there were no mistakes and no oddities. Cyril asked again in amazement, oddities. She explained, for example, that it happens that a knight rents a dragon and only binds it to the guild for a while. The guild level increases, and the dragon is returned to its owner. There are people here who try to make money in a dishonest way. Cyril understood everything. Rose added, so if his guild moved to the 2nd level, then she congratulates him on it. He thanked her and asked if anything changes with the increase in level. The girl answered that it does, and asked him to give the guild girl a clean sheet of paper. When Cyril did what Rose asked, the fairy flew out of the bag. Barely touching the paper, she began to draw something on it. He wondered what she was drawing there. Rose told him to just watch her. When the fairy finished drawing, he was amazed to notice that it was a map of the city where they were. In the very center of the map, something was glowing. The girl explained that it was a map where his registered dragons were visible. He saw that it was glowing right next to the administration building, which meant that Louise was here. Cyril noted that this was very convenient, but Rose did not see another of his dragons on the map. She asked about this. Cyril replied that Colette was on Mount Milrif, so she was not on the map. The girl was amazed. He was sending them alone on errands. He could even do that? She added that if you need Mount Milrif, you can move the map with your fingers in the right direction. Cyril was surprised. The scale of the map changed. That was cool. Moving the map, Rose pointed to the 2nd glowing dot and said that this dot was Colette. The girl added that with the increase in level, many convenient chips will appear. Let him try. Cyril was still admiring the map, then asked her why the level increased this time. Rose answered that she did not quite understand how it works yet. It is very unusual. At that moment, Colette arrived. Xelir greeted her. She asked her master what happened. Was he waiting for her on purpose? He answered that one convenient thing fell into his hands here, and he thought that she was just going home. Cyril continued, he has something for her. Colette was interested in what kind of package. What is in it? Cyril took out the ribbon she asked for from the package. Her joy knew no bounds. Cyril noted that the mask for Louise would not be made soon, but there were a lot of ribbons on sale. Colette was so delighted she swallowed the endings of words. Her whole appearance expressed complete delight in her decoration. Cyril pinned the ribbon on her ear and noted that it would certainly be beautiful. Before he could remove his hand, Colette was gone. He exclaimed, "Where is she?" The dragon returned almost instantly. Cyril happily said that he was right. This decoration suited her very well. She asked embarrassedly, "Is he telling the truth?" He laughed, answered that it was true, and added that she was very beautiful. Colette was completely embarrassed, but pretended to be angry and noted that she already knew this, in fact. Cyril agreed with her. She thanked her owner with a smile. At that moment, the light appeared from the bag again. Cyril took out the card. It was glowing again. He noted that the level did not seem to change. So what was the matter? Sylar looked at Colette, who was extremely pleased with the gift, and thought, maybe the happier the dragons are, the more experience the guild accumulates. What awaited Sylar and the dragons in the created guild? After some time, Cyril, sitting astride Louise, opened the map and said that it was only morning and Colette was already busy. Louise replied that she wanted to show herself in business. She giggled all night yesterday. She even got scared. Surely she remembered how he raised her. Louise was wearing an eye mask on her head, which she wanted so much. Cyril thought, was Colette so happy? She earns very well for them, so he praised her. Then, too, her power meter ribbon and guild card were shining. Perhaps his assumption was correct. Louise also happily wears the mask that was recently sewn for her. Lost in his thoughts, he didn't even notice how Louise brought him to the mayor's office. He told her that he would go and take the task. Louise stayed outside to wait for her master. When Cyril approached the notice board, he was surprised to see the Lindworm Certificate of Honor. It said that considering the merits of the last year, the kingdom expresses special gratitude to the Lindworm Guild. Cyril thought about his former guild, that they had different views, but he was still delighted, and clients feel more comfortable contacting guilds with a good reputation. He said that they should also try to get a similar document. At that moment, laughter was heard from behind him. Louis was standing behind him, who told him not to even dream about it. He heard that Cyril founded his own guild. An organization of one person will never be awarded. He cannot even dream about it. In Lindworm, after receiving this certificate, the number of people wishing to join it increased. Even a few B-rank knights with good achievements behind them. Cyril knew that the knights' ranks also changed depending on their achievements. B-rank knights were quite famous and had a lot of achievements. He said out loud that it was not bad. Louis noted that if he had only stayed in Lindworm a little longer, he would have been on the way of 2. Cyril thought that all this was of course great, but he really didn't want to go back to them. Coming out of the city hall, Cyril saw a crowd of people who were excitedly talking about something. He thought, what was going on? Why was it so noisy? Cyril approached the people and asked, did something happen here? One guy answered him that a dragon had escaped. Killer was surprised. Had it escaped? The guy added that it was making a ruckus there. They were trying to catch it, but it was unclear where this dragon was now. Cyril thanked him for the answer and thought that this was the first time he had heard of a dragon escaping. Of course, he wanted to find out more about this case, but he noticed that Louise looked very sleepy. He did not want to torment her. He told her that he would quickly go to the administration, report everything, and return. Louise meekly agreed with him. Before Cyril had time to go to the porch, a dragon appeared in front of him and knocked him down. He scratched the top of his head and thought, what is this? Suddenly the dragon called him by name and asked him for help. He was surprised to recognize her as Emma, the dragon from Lindworm. She begged, since she could not stay there anymore. He looked around, noticed that this was not the best place for a conversation, and offered her to follow him. Louise was also supposed to follow him. When they arrived at Cyril's house, he clarified, she was Emma, right? The dragon was amazed. Did he remember her? He answered positively and added that he remembered everyone he talked to there then. A Soom dragon. She belonged to the Lindworm Guild. Soom are small dragons, even among small breeds, but their combat abilities surpass many, and therefore they are in almost all guilds. He asked her why she ran away. She hesitated with an answer, but still said that she had recently been feeling unwell, and made it clear that she should be allowed to rest, but in vain. She was said to work through force, and there she almost broke all her bones and failed completely. If only this were all right, but the guildmaster adhered to the rule. A dragon that had once been guilty was no longer good for it. If she failed again, she must be driven to death or destroyed. Cyril clearly remembered how this master had once told him the same thing. She sighed sadly, saying that nothing had changed, and this despite the fact that people knew that dragons understood human speech. And still, saying such things in front of her was the height of stupidity. She continued. She had heard a rumor that Sealer came to the dragon's stable every day, so she waited there for him. She again turned to him with a plea and asked him to hide her here. Sealer thought about the dragon's transfer between guilds. I wonder if Lindworm will agree to negotiate. Suddenly they heard a knock. Cyril assumed that it was from the gate. Emma asked fearfully, "Pursuers?" Cyril stroked her head and told her not to worry. Everything will be fine. Let her trust him. He will take her from them. He opened the gate. There stood Louis, who irritably asked, "Is he with his dragon? Is he right?" He learned everything from a witness. Cyril replied that if he was asking about Emma, then he has her. Louis exclaimed that he should quickly bring her to him. He will take her home. Cyril calmly offered to buy the dragon from him. Louis frowned. Was he serious? He thinks he'll just give him the escaped dragon? Cyril retorted. The guildmaster told him to drive her to death, right? The guy was surprised. From whom could he have learned about this? Sealer irritably replied that there is no smoke without fire. He cannot return this dragon to such a master. Let him go and tell him about his offer. He offers them a trade. Louis got angry, but who will listen to him? He forcefully pushed Cyril away, ran to the barn, and shouted at Emma to come out to him. They are going back. Let her not delay with the exit. At that moment, Louis stood in front of him. Louis exclaimed, "What is this? What an ambush!" Louis angrily said that he is her master's enemy. Let him die, and activated her skill. Louis was thrown aside. He was indignant. "What is this?" Cyril asked. What did he expect? Uninvited guests are always and everywhere greeted the same way. Guy was so angry that he couldn't even find an answer. Cyril repeated his request to convey his words to his master. Louis threatened him that he would get his way. After some time, Dickie Rush, the master of the Lindworm Guild, came to him. When they sat down at the negotiating table, the master said that he had been conveyed his offer. So, he wants to buy out their dragon? Cyril replied that he had been conveyed everything correctly. He couldn't just watch them drive her to death. Dickie chuckled, so that's what motivated him. Cyril noted that he himself could see everything perfectly well. The master said that this dragon would no longer bring any benefit to their guild. And nevertheless, it was Lindworm's property. He couldn't just give it away. Sylar asked him how much he needed to pay. Dickie replied that he was not interested in money. When a person asks for something, then it is still necessary to understand your situation. Cyril, without thinking twice, fell to his knees, bowed to the master, and repeated his request after a please. Dickie was amazed by Cyril's devotion to the dragons, chuckled, and replied that he could do whatever he wanted, after which he silently left. Cyril exhaled, opened the door. His dragons were standing behind it. He noticed that Colette had already returned. She asked about the master. He was an enemy, right? Louise asked if everything was okay with the owner. Emma addressed him by name and looked at him with a silent question in her eyes. He smiled, said that no matter what, the negotiations took place, and now Emma is free. The dragon was very happy with his news and warmly thanked him. He asked her what she would do now. Maybe she would like to go somewhere. She answered that she did not want to go anywhere. She wanted to come to him. Cyril grinned and said, "Welcome to them." To their team, Emma was incredibly happy with his invitation. At that moment, all three dragons were illuminated with light. Sylar was surprised. What was it? The dragons were also amazed. Were they glowing? Cyril's hand seemed to be drawn to the ground. He thought, was something calling him? He picked something up from the ground, and when he opened his palm, he was surprised to see a ring that was glowing. The dragons looked at the thing with no less surprise. They could not believe their eyes, and almost in chorus exclaimed that it was an artifact. Cyril asked again in surprise. An artifact? Emma answered that it was called the secret treasure of the dragons. A long time ago, the dragon lord MN, with the help of the king of the gods, created it. They say that it appears only in the hands of the one who is loved by the dragons. Sailor thoughtfully said who the dragons love. He turned to his girls and said, "Dragon Lord Amen, except for his name, nothing has been heard of him. Do they know anything about him?" Louise replied that she didn't know much. They say he was the Lord when dragons ruled this world. His voice could enchant any living being. Even the king of the gods, Romanzir himself, was his ardent admirer. Cyril noted, "Oh, this world of legends." But he saw the artifact for the first time. The dragons also had not encountered anything like this. Cyril asked them in surprise. If they were seeing it for the first time, how did they know that this was it? Emma answered that they just knew. It was like an instinct. Sylar examined the artifact again and thought that he saw an ordinary ring in it, but if all three dragons instinctively recognized it, it was probably a real treasure. Cyril began to speak and fell silent. The dragons asked him what he meant. What did he want to say? Cyril answered that since it was a dragon's treasure, it would be better if the dragons owned it, wouldn't it? He offered Colette to wear it in her belly, for example. Colette categorically refused his offer. She exclaimed with fear that she would not do it. She will swallow the artifact. What if it curses her? Cyril looked puzzled. Emma said that there are many reasons why dragons cannot take it. He was amazed at how valuable it was. Then he decided that the artifact would be his. Cyril put the ring on his finger and thought about its effect. He asked the dragons if they felt anything. They answered negatively. It also seemed to him that nothing had changed. At that moment, he looked at his girls and was surprised to see their condition indicators above their heads. They noticed his surprised face and asked what was going on. He answered that he seemed to understand everything. Colette asked what he understood. Let him explain everything to them too. Cyril turned to her and asked if she was feeling unwell today. She answered in surprise that she was fine. Cyril noted that the artifact showed him this information. Louise asked in amazement, "The artifact?" He replied that it was so. He saw two indicators above Louise and Emma's heads, and they indicate their physical form and psychological state. One of the indicators above Colette's head was very weak, so he told her she was the only one working. Of course, she would get tired. Cyril apologized to her. Colette was embarrassed and answered not very confidently that everything was fine. She felt fine. Cyril objected to her. She was smart and worked well, but he did not want her to get sick, so he would allow her to rest for a day tomorrow. He believed that the artifact had fallen into his hands so that he would not burden them too much. Colette finally could not contain her emotions and happily replied that she understood everything and that tomorrow, therefore, she would rest. Kyler looked at the ring and thought that it would not allow the dragons to overwork. For their guild, dragons above all, this is the best artifact. A few days later, late in the evening, Cyril heard a knock on the door. He thought, it's already night. Who could it be? Sildur opened the door and saw an unfamiliar young man there. He apologized for his late visit. It was Laurent Fleury and asked if he was Cillier. After Cyril confirmed his assumption, he apologized again for visiting so late. He added that they were not acquainted, told him his name, and said that he would like to ask him for one favor. Cyril asked why him. Laurent replied that he came on the recommendation of Lady Muriel. Cyril remembered Catherine and her task with a love letter and invited the guy into the house. He asked him what his request was. Laurent said that one of the Dragon Knight guilds was defeated in a campaign. Cyril was surprised. Usually campaigns are carried out against groups of monsters. Since it is dangerous, in case of success, the knight will receive wealth and glory. However, there are also victims. He asked how unsuccessful the campaign was. Laurent sadly said that the entire first squad, every single one, had been destroyed. Cyril was amazed to note that he had not heard of anything like that for 5 years. Laurent continued that, according to the rules of that guild, everyone was required to write a will before going on a campaign. He would like to ask Cyril to collect these wills. Cyril is worried. Will he have enough strength to go to such a dangerous place? The guy replied that it was not a problem. That guild had created a second, reinforced army, so there was simply no one to collect the wills. This happened in the Danzig Valley. For completing the task, he would pay him 5,000 lire. Cillier replied that he understood everything and that he would take on this task. Laurent thanked him and added that when he would collect the wills, he could dispose of the things he found at his own discretion. Cyril said that he understood his words. The next day, getting ready for the journey, he analyzed that if he took into account the time for Louise to sleep, the one-way journey to the Danzig Valley would take 3 days. Louise turned to her master and asked him to listen to her. What did this young man mean by saying that he could do whatever he wanted with things? Cyril asked in surprise. Had she heard their conversation yesterday? The dragon did not deny it. He noted that she had very good hearing. He thought that meant that she could hear his every move. At that moment, Colette came up to them and listened to their conversation. Cyril explained that the field of the past battle was simply a mountain of treasure. Louise asked in surprise, "A mountain of treasure?" He explained that people go into battle in expensive armor and with good equipment. Therefore, taking this from the dead and selling it for a good price is considered a common thing. Colette shuddered at these words and said, "What a horror! People do this too." Cyril replied that it was. He had even heard of a poor guy who had been struck by the residual magic of an item. So, this activity was life-threatening. Colette chuckled. Selir continued saying that dragons and their knights often used ammunition that was much more expensive than that of ordinary warriors. Colette summed it up with distaste, which meant that it could be rephrased as taking it as a reward. Cyril replied that she was right and added that he did not like the idea. They set off, making stops because Louise was asleep and to rest themselves. Finally, after some time, they arrived at the place. Looking at the map, Cyril noticed that this was the very valley. They approached its edge and looked down. Everyone was shocked by the picture they saw. Cyril said, 20 people and 30 dragons, mountains of the dead, and a sea of blood. Colette shuddered and said that it was a terrible sight. Selir turned to Emma. It was easier for her to notice the enemy. How would she assess the situation around her? She replied that everything was fine. She did not feel any hostility. He unclenched his hand in which the capsule was lying and suggested that the dragons split up and look for such things from everyone. According to the customer, everyone should have them. The dragons were ready to work, and the allies split up. Colette went in the company of Cyril. She noted that, indeed, it was unpleasant work. She offered her a rest. She refused. Telling him that she would also work, nothing could be done. Cyril warmly thanked her. After a while, they all gathered at the departure point. Selir examined the capsules he found, noted that they were collected from everyone, and told Colette that now it was her turn. She collected all the items and asked, "Is that all?" The dragon suggested that everyone return home as soon as possible. She did not want to linger here at all. Cyril asked her to stay. He said that there was still work, or rather, a request. As the dragons pricked up their ears, they were ready to fulfill any of his requests. Cyril hesitated, then suggested that his girls bury these knights and dragons. They were surprised. Bury them? He replied that they understood everything correctly. Leaving everything like this was too cruel. Louise turned to him. He asked what? Still not worth it? She replied that it was not the point. She wanted to know, should they make graves for the dragons too? Cyril answered in the affirmative. She said that he was strange. She already knew it. But still, he was strange. Scott and Emma confirmed her words about his strangeness. Cyril replied that maybe so. Let them not be angry with him for having to spend their time with such an eccentric. Louise objected. He got it all wrong. Yes, he is strange, but very good. Tyler was very grateful to her. They returned home safely. Sometime later, Cyril received a letter from Rose, in which she asked him to urgently come to her. When he came, she apologized to him for calling him so abruptly. He replied that it was okay, but something happened since she sent him a letter on purpose. The girl told him sadly that his guild had already reached the 3rd level. Usually it takes about 3 months. Selir calmed down. Was that what she wanted to say? At that moment, the fairy of his guild flew out of the bag. She was very pleased. He thought she was giggling. Cyril looked at Rose and noticed that she somehow did not look very happy. Something happened? The girl replied, Not that it happened. It's just that a guild with 1 knight in such productivity is puzzling. They certainly set historical records. Cyril chuckled. Historical records? Until now, this was not his story at all. The girl noted that this is what she wanted to ask him about. What did he think? Was there some reason for this? Cyril thought about it. He did not see any reasons, except that he followed the principle in the name of the guild. He cares most about dragons. That's all. Rose did not think that this was somehow related, but did not pursue this topic further. She only added that since his guild had now reached the 3rd level, they could now use the utility room. This guild building looks like an ordinary warehouse, but it has a spell that does not let anyone inside, except for the knights and dragons of the guild. Cyril thought that it would be funny to try to combine this with Colette's abilities. There were people standing on the street, openly staring at him and talking about something. Cyril thought that everyone was already whispering about the rapid growth of his guild. Some were looking with interest, some with suspicion. He realized that this was not a very pleasant feeling. Approaching his house, he was surprised there was a carriage standing there. Coming closer, he heard someone calling him and was surprised to see the princess getting out of the carriage. The girl said that she was very glad to meet him. She had heard a lot about his activities. Cyril was amazed. His activities? She answered that it was so, or rather, about how he copes with various tasks and reached the 3rd level faster than anyone in history. He is now the main object of attention among the knights. Cyril was amazed. Is she serious? Passers-by began to pay attention to them, and Celia invited her into the house, away from prying eyes. They sat down at the table. He asked her what she had come for today. The princess answered that today she wanted to ask the best knight for a small favor. He was embarrassed and noted that she had praised him too much. The girl objected to him. He was wrong, and Cyril gave in. She continued that she would really like him to take care of a special dragon. He thought that since the princess was asking directly, it must be a serious matter, but he was not afraid. He was sure that he could handle her dragon. He still understood them. Out loud, he asked her if she thought he would do. The girl indignantly stopped him. She was talking about serious things. He answered that he understood everything and that he agreed to take her dragon. The princess was very happy with his answer and thanked him. Cyril asked her what kind of dragon it was. She folded her hands and said that it was a baby phoenix. Cyril was dumbfounded. He couldn't believe his ears. He asked her with hope. She wasn't talking about what else is called a divine child. She exclaimed that it was exactly that kind. He asked in amazement why she was assigning him such an important role. The girl blushed and hesitated with an answer. Cyril noticed that she was all blushing. Does she have a reason to be embarrassed? She said that she just wanted to see how he would mess around with a divine child. His amazement knew no bounds. What was she talking about? The princess immediately exclaimed that she was joking. In fact, the reason was simple. His guild was still small, and she thought that this would be a good investment in the future. Cyril relaxed and thanked her for her high assessment of his organization. That same day, they set off on their journey to the divine child. They were carried by Louise. The princess noted that she had ridden her before. It was surprising that they did not shake at all. She was delighted with their mutual understanding. Her guards followed them with a carriage. Cyril asked her if she was sure that such a ride was better for her than a carriage. The princess laughed and assured him that she even liked it. He was worried. Louise reassured him. If he wanted to impress her, she would walk very carefully. He answered her that she was very perceptive, and she said everything correctly. Cyril later turned to the girl and said, he found out a little here that the phoenixes have already died out, and he heard that there are no cubs anymore. She answered that he was right. Cyril was surprised. What did she mean? The princess told him that they say that there is only one divine child left on Earth now, and there is an ancient legend that they do not give birth to cubs, but are reborn after death. Cyril was amazed by her words. Louise noted that she had heard about it too. Emma picked up that, although they were dragons, they were superior to them in some ways. Colette added that they were completely invulnerable in life. The princess said admiringly that phoenixes were cool, weren't they? Cyril answered her that they were. She continued, however, sometimes several centuries passed before rebirth, and she thought that maybe he would be able to fulfill her request. Cyril doubted whether everything would be okay. He was amazed. So they were not talking about living dragons. 2 days later, they arrived at the place. Before their eyes stood a high mountain with a temple. Cyril noted that it was really impossible to get up here by carriage. The night guard standing at the main gate greeted her. They were waiting for her. The princess thanked him for his service and suggested that he stop talking empty talk. Let him tell her, can they see the divine child now? The guard answered, of course. Everything is unchanged. She thanked him again and invited Cyril to follow her. Sealer asked his dragons, will they wait for him here? Of course, the dragons agreed. Entering the temple, they walked along a long corridor, and Cyril asked her, "Is this the divine child in front of them?" In front of them lay a dragon skeleton. The princess confirmed his guess. As he can see, these are bones, and in this state for several centuries, they believe that one day he will be reborn. So the guards are protecting him. How is it? Did he understand anything? Cyril answered that first he would like to examine it. Approaching the skeleton, he glanced at it and thought that it did not become clearer to him. Suddenly the skeleton turned to him. A human child? Cyril almost went crazy with surprise. The skeleton continued that for the first time in decades, people had come here. It had been a long time ago. He noisily inhaled and noticed that the girl smelled of royal blood, and he was an ordinary person. Sealer asked in shock, was he even talking? The divine child asked him in return, was the person talking to him? Cyril answered that everything was so, everything was correct. The skeleton chuckled, so the person understood him? That was news to him. Cyril irritably noted that he should have said such words. Just think, a corpse, and he was talking. The skeleton laughed even harder and said that he thought like an ordinary person. He again addressed Sealer as a human child, asking why he came here. Cyril answered that he came to look at his condition and maybe help him be reborn. The skeleton chuckled. People still have such a legend, or something else, but it seems that people were taught how to revive them. Cyril asked in amazement, "What is he talking about?" Then he turned to the princess. She asked him, did he learn something? In response, he asked her a counter-question. Does she know a way to revive a divine child? The princess was confused by such a question, but she did not know what Sealer asked her. The skeleton laughed and noted that people's memory is short, and written sources and their safety depend on the will of those in power. Then he called the human child to himself. When Cyril approached him, he said that he just needs to be set on fire. Cyril asked again with doubt, "Set on fire?" The skeleton answered that he is reborn from fire countless times. Cyril did not dare to do this, because surely the dragon bones are a state treasure, and setting it on fire will be a problem. Although he knew that dragons do not lie, and decided, come what may, he will set it on fire. He turned to the princess and said that now he will revive the divine child. Perhaps she will be a little discouraged by the method, but she does not mind. She said that she understood him and added that she entrusts him with everything necessary for this. He thanked her and got down to business. When Cyril set fire to the skeleton, it burst into a very bright flame. The princess was amazed. What did he do? How could he do this? Suddenly, the flame swelled even more, and from it appeared a dragon phoenix.